James Williams, Director of Programs with MEF, and a very, very warm welcome if you've just joined us to MEF Connects Wholesale 2021. Now, when we started putting this event together, people made very, very certain that I didn't just talk about SMS and messaging this whole event, because as you'll know, that is my favorite topic area. But we had to absolutely get a session in about SMS, text messaging. Now, we are here talking about SMS wholesale. So for once, we won't just be talking about application to person SMS. We're going to be also talking about person-to-person SMS. But I suspect from the panelists, and indeed the whole subject area, A2P will very much dominate the conversation. So first off, without further ado, let's introduce the panelists. And let's start with Larissa. Larissa from Russia. Hey, Larissa. Hi.
Hi. Hello.
Hello. So we've got Larissa Ryndik from Intis Telecom. We'll let you give an introduction once I have introduced everyone and bring you all on together. Next up, I'd like to introduce Eamonn Dullaghan, who is head of wholesale in Europe with Infobip. Eamonn, nice you could join us. Hi.
Hi, James. Hi, Larissa. Good afternoon, everybody. Nice to be here.
And next up, we have Taha Jiwaji, who is the founder and CEO of Beem. Hey, Taha.
Hi, everyone. Happy to be here.
Hello. You're very, very on brand there. Very on brand. I think there's no doubt we know who you work for. And we next have Dimitri Repinec, who is Product Management, Development and Strategy, a very, very long title, MTN Global Connect. And I think you're in Dubai, Dimitri, at the moment. I think Dimitri may be on mute, but no.
So I was saying, James, sorry.
No, but I think you're in Dubai, sir. You're in Dubai. Yeah,
in Dubai. I hope everyone is doing well.
Yeah, doing all right. Thank you. And last, but absolutely by no means not least, Mr. Malick Dibba, who is the founder and CEO of Alchemy Telco Limited in Gambia. Hi, Malick. Welcome.
Hi, everyone. Hi, James. Thanks for having me.
Hello. So, but very quickly, do you know what? I'm going to give you a few seconds each to run down your companies. Larissa, Intis Telecom, what do you do?
So I'm a director of routing at Intis Telecom. So basically, I set the SMS routes for SMS delivery.
So, okay, so you're 100% SMS, A2P, fantastic.
Yes.
Yeah. Next up, we've got Taha over in Beem in Tanzania. Hi.
Yeah, my name is Taha. Beem is a Pan-African CPaaS provider, cloud communications provider. SMS is definitely a big part of what we do across all the countries that we work in.
Fantastic. You're one of our more recent members and a very warm welcome. Malick, you are, in fact, I think, our most recent member to MEF, so very, very warm welcome to the MEF community. Introduce yourself and your company, sir.
Thank you very much, James, for giving us this opportunity. I am Malick Dibba, the CEO and co-founder of Alchemy Telco Limited. Basically, we are like Beem. We provide communication platforms as a service in this part of the world and the Sub-Saharan. But yes, basically that's what we do.
Fantastic. Messaging 100%. Dimitri, yourself, MTN Global Connect, your focuses. I think you're on mute, sir.
Sorry, I keep forgetting.
Oh, wait, me. Sorry. I usually do it. I've got plenty of time before the end of this event. I usually do it 3 times. So don't make it a third.
This will be the last time. I'll leave it open. So working for MTN Global Connect. MTN Global Connect is the international wholesale arm of MTN Group, where we mainly are operating in 3 main areas, which is capacity, voice, messaging, and roaming.
Fantastic. And messaging is a very large part of that, I think, isn't it?
Correct, yes.
Fantastic. So perfectly placed here on this discussion. And Eamonn, yourself with Infobip.
Yeah, so I'm head of wholesale for Europe. So I work within the global wholesale division within Infobip, with a particular focus on the aggregators, resellers, and operators who are our wholesale customers in the European region.
Fantastic. You yourself, I know, were with Anam before, and before that with Vodafone, so you've got some great carrier experience to bring to proceedings here. So, first of all, I introduced this session by saying to people, we're not just going to be talking about A2P SMS. Let's talk a little bit about P2P SMS. Dimitri, can you just give us a little bit of an idea about what's happening to the world of P2P SMS in terms of volumes across your territories with MTN?
So volumes are still there. Slowly, it's declining a little bit. Typically, it's being taken over by the OTT messaging space, right? Now, on the A2P, it's a completely different story, but let's be brief, A2P is slowly declining. There's still a lot of room, or still room within MTN Global Connect to optimize this type of traffic. But the general trend, I think everyone agrees, is slowly declining.
It is. And would there be any way, do you think at all, given this onslaught by the OTTs, of bringing back P2P volumes, or is this something we've just got to live with as an industry, particular carriers such as yourselves, in terms of P2P volumes declining?
Is this ever gonna come back?
Yeah, you never know. Yeah, I had to ask.
Well, no, but what I see more as a trend coming back is where you will have more interaction happening again on that messaging side of a channel, typically with brands. The biggest question mark is which channel is this gonna be, which channel is gonna conquer actually the entire conversation. Yeah. So future will tell us.
Fantastic. So Taha, you're in Tanzania. Now, I don't know if any of you have actually caught the fantastic Future of Messaging guide that came out last week, basically about a week ago. And in it, I saw the statistics from Mobile Squared, and believe it or not, the country at the top of their research in terms of the highest A2P SMS increases in the world was, guess which country? Your home country, sir, Tanzania. Is that what you're seeing from your business volumes?
No, definitely. I think the A2P, like the business in itself, there's still a lot of room for growth. And yes, we're seeing volumes grow up because more SMEs and more businesses are kind of joining this channel as more consumers move to smartphones. Because most of our markets, smartphone penetration is going up. It's at about 30%. And increasing year on year, month on month. So businesses have to follow them basically, and that's where that uptake is coming from.
Fantastic. No, it's been a massive uptick. And Malick, likewise with you in Gambia. I know we spoke a few weeks ago, and you were mentioning the internet penetration in general, never mind smartphones or anything like that. It's fairly low in your home country, but it's growing. As a result of that, is SMS, A2P SMS, business to consumer SMS, still growing very, very strongly with you?
Yeah, sure. Basically, that's the whole case. The internet penetration rate is still less than 20%. So for the businesses to interact with their customers or their clients, or for government to engage with the citizens, there are no other channels that they can go through other than SMS or IVR for the less privileged people that never got the chance to have the education. But yeah, it's growing. There is still room for growth. It's a big opportunity around this part of the world.
No, fantastic. And Larissa, yourself. Now I know Intis Telecom. You're originally from Russia. You're here in the UK as well, but predominantly still the majority of your business is in Russia and CIS countries. How are you seeing volumes and business in general?
Well, we can see a lot of new customers from e-commerce, for example, but the percentage of traffic is different now because we receive less promotional messages and more codes and passwords and notifications.
Okay, so it's become more transactional. That's something I want to get onto actually with this mix of traffic, because around the world, you've got three types of SMS traffic out there. You've got marketing, you've got transactional and informative.
Right. But in general, we can see the growth.
Yeah. So you're really seeing that grow. Okay, excellent. What about SMS for two-factor authentication? Eamonn, is that's still out there? Because we've got a security session actually, which I'm running tomorrow at the event, and so many times it comes up that SMS should not be used for 2FA, but is SMS actually proving its mettle and holding its own and just showing actually it is great for 2FA, and you're seeing that in terms of volumes through Infobip for that use case?
Absolutely, yeah. I mean, I think what we've seen in the last 18 months or so with the pandemic is actually quite a significant growth in that kind of traffic, you know, with lots of online purchasing that's been happening, which has been a massive sort of use case that has grown in during the pandemic period. And we've seen that growing, you know, right across all the regions as well. You know, from our perspective, we manage all the customers that are based in Europe, but they deliver traffic to anywhere in our footprint. So we have customers based in Europe delivering traffic to Africa, to LATAM, to APAC regions, and you know, we're not seeing anything to suggest that kind of use case is in decline, or generally any use case is in decline. We're just seeing an overall growth year on year in traffic.
Okay. Now, I know this panel is really focused on SMS, but the CPaaS word has already been mentioned by a couple of you already. So do you know what? I'm going to be a bad moderator. I'm going to actually widen this out from just talking a little bit about SMS into a bit wider and CPaaS in general. So Malick, let's come to you. You mentioned, I think you were the second person to mention CPaaS, or the first person to mention CPaaS, and it's an important area. How are companies going on out there successfully integrating SMS with other communication channels in their communications stack, turning it into something really multi-channel, and ultimately, obviously, the holy grail is omni-channel, but that's something different again. So from your perspective, is SMS being integrated well into your communication stack? Malick, I think you're on mute.
I'm sorry. I think I'm just like Dimitri here, you know.
No problem.
Yeah. Basically, it's like I said, there is still room for growth. We recently did a deployment for a platform that UNDP sponsored, and the challenges they were having is the literacy rate. Most of the farmers that were supposed to be the users were not able to read these messages. So what we did was integrated it with a short code and an IVR. So anyone that can read a message can just call this IVR and get these messages in all local languages. And that was basically the breaking point for that particular solution and for many other solutions as they are picking it up right now. But like I said, there is still room for growth, and yeah, that's it. I'll pass it over to Taha.
Well, no, but you know what? That's a fantastic use case actually, and it really mentions. I remember many years ago dealing with a client at that time, and they were involved in sending out reminders for people to take retroviral drugs for patients, people who had HIV. And those drugs, they only work properly if people take them at the correct times. And like the exact same use case you mentioned, if you've got people who can't actually read, what can you do? And that integration with IVR and voice is absolutely critical. So the fact that you could actually integrate it with voice pushes out and it actually increases the SMS market further. So those use cases are absolutely critical. Now, Dimitri, we have, as I mentioned, tomorrow, I'm going to be having a security-related discussion about wholesale in general. But we have to talk about this when we come to SMS. How do you think we as an industry are doing in terms of protecting the consumer and thus keeping those SMS channels clean and clear of spam and fraud?
Yep. So there's an entire process, of course, that we're following at MTN Global Connect side. But in order to assure all these big brands and the big enterprises, it's where we come into the picture, is where we have to ensure that the traffic that is being generated by brands and has to be communicated with the consumers, that bottom between is hyperly secure, right? And it's free from any errors and can be delivered in a very fast time frame. Now, the impact on this is, of course, that how do you keep those channels clean is of course a huge investment, where you try to ensure that any potential path inside a network or into a network and at the end of into a mobile phone is completely secured, isolated, and it's a work which at MTN Global Connect starts to pay off, because it's actually something which enterprises, brands start to appreciate quite a lot, whereby we actually do that effort, where we ensure that messages are delivered in the right way, that it's being blocked and isolated any spam entering the network, where at the end of the day the consumers are happy, and at the end of the day the enterprises starting to rely more and more on that communication channel of SMS, and start to see actually that, you know, networks such as MTN Global Connect and others can actually achieve what was impossible to achieve a couple of years ago.
Oh, thank you. Over to you, Taha. Whose responsibility is it, do you really see, to keep these SMS channels clean and clear, and to really allow SMS to grow further and further as it looks to be when it comes to business to consumer communications?
Yeah, I think it's a shared responsibility. The aggregators have to do their part, and the MNOs have to do their part as well, and enterprises have to do their part. And you know, enterprises have to work with the aggregators to kind of continually meet different requirements, let's say, put by MNOs, but also understand, you know, what are new ways that maybe phishing attacks or things like that are happening, so that they can be aware, especially financial institutions, etc. So it's a shared responsibility in that part. The MNOs in many of our markets are constantly changing their rules and requirements. Like the Dimitri mentioned, MTN has changed regulations, even Airtel has changed for many of the African markets in terms of their requirements for registering sender IDs, etc. So though that evolution continues to happen, and we, you know, it's a shared responsibility across the parties.
Okay, yeah, thank you. I think coming from MEF, I would absolutely agree with that. If you look at the 2/3 of MEF members who are part of the Future of Messaging program, that community, that working together is truly important. So as you mentioned, all stakeholders have a role to play, including, to a degree, subscribers to actually report spam and fraud. So that's great. Now, Larissa, Taha mentioned sender ID. Now, not everywhere around the world supports alphanumeric sender IDs. How important is the ability to have alphanumeric sender IDs and to offer these to your clients in helping the SMS channel grow? Is it a really critical component to help as SMS channels grow?
It really depends on the nature of text messages, because if you send codes and passwords and a subscriber is actually waiting for this code, the sender ID is not really that important. But when it comes to promotional messages, of course, your brand name is something very, very crucial, and the recipients must see whom they receive these messages from. Otherwise, they will just block it maybe or delete it. So sender ID is important, and in some markets, for example, in the United States, where you cannot place an alphanumeric sender ID, it's quite an issue because you need to specify it within the content, and you need also to place some other things there, and it actually increase the length of the message and the price, of course.
So this lack of standardization is a bit of an issue, certainly if you're an international player looking to be on that global stage. That's hampering things. Okay, thank you. Now, Eamonn, I was probably a bit cruel not asking you the security question, given where you've come from just before this, but I intentionally did that and stayed away from that. Now, Larissa was just talking about the use cases there, mentioning that sender IDs, in terms of the 2FA side of things, for example, not truly important when it comes to the 2FA side of things. But I suspect when we're coming to the marketing use cases, alphanumeric sender IDs are absolutely critical. Would you agree?
Yes, absolutely. And I think, you know, just going back to the earlier point about security, I think there's a responsibility on all of us across, you know, throughout the value chain and throughout the ecosystem to ensure that the traffic is kept clean. I know there are, you know, for example, Dimitri in MTN with the large groups, they've been very proactive in terms of their investment to make sure that you know, the standards are maintained. But for smaller operators, it may be more of a challenge. But I think in recent years there has been commercial models that have come into play that make it much easier to take the right action. For example, there's lots of revenue share models. There's the sort of exclusive aggregator model. All of these kind of remove a lot of the heavy lifting away from the operators and make it easier for them to take the initiative in terms of protecting their subscribers, protecting their network, and that I think will help the entire ecosystem because it creates a clean channel for subscribers, for operators, for aggregators, and for enterprises.
Fantastic, thank you, Eamonn. Malick, let's stick with the use case side of things. So I was doing some research and looking at the whole world of mobile advertising and looking at actually the potential power A2P messaging could have in that area. Because if you look at the stats today, A2P SMS is round about worth $20 billion a year. But if you look at the combined spend on mobile advertising, that's running at about 15 times that level. Now, within your country, obviously, you've got TV advertising, you've got print advertising and everything. Are you seeing yourself more businesses really moving within your home country, moving away, or probably or supplementing in addition traditional print advertising in newspapers and magazines, or probably posters at bus stops or whatever, with SMS? Is that an increasing use case you're seeing, actually the marketing, the advertising side of things?
Yeah, sure. It's how we actually sell most of our products, meaning all the other channels that they can use to interact or market their products are limited. They come with limitations maybe, but SMS is just targeted, and it's very close to the person, very intimate. One of the first things that we do in the morning is check your phones, and at last, before you go to bed, you check your phones. So it's a really powerful tool, yes, and both government and businesses are looking towards that direction. And also a critical tool for, like, we provide a weather forecast for all those guys that do fishermen, and these messages are really critical to their lives to make sure that they get the right message at the right point in time. No other channel could have been used for that because these fishermen don't have email addresses, they don't probably watch TV, and needing to get the message at the right time was really critical. So yes, the SMS is one of the channels that don't have limitations as a 98% open.
Yeah, Fantastic. Yeah, like you said, 98% are read, and you've got people looking at their phones, not just when they wake up, when they go to bed. 150 times a day, we had our smartphone research, and people apparently 150 times a day looking at their phone, looking at their smartphones. I can believe it, certainly when I'm concerned and where I'm looking at email all the time. Now, Dimitri, I raised the topic of digital advertising. Now, with digital advertising, you're kind of limited in many ways to a landing page or a native app. But with messaging, there are no limits. Do you think in the coming 2, 3, 4 years, you're going to see across your territories you look after a real uptick, an upswing in your enterprise clients using, ultimately, the end user enterprise clients using SMS for advertising purposes? Will there be a big shift, do you think?
Well, of course, there are regulations in place in different countries. So it depends as well how the regulations are going to react to all this. Now, today, we barely see any type of advertisement, promotional type of messaging going over our channels, right? Is this going to change towards the future? Most likely, yes. But the question is going to be, again, what is the type of channel that is going to be used to engage with the customers, the consumers, and start pushing promotional type of campaigns? That's still a little bit where as MTN, we have a certain view onto this. We have certain strategies in place, how we're gonna move further into the next couple of years into that entire engagement component with our consumers. Do I see in Africa text messaging happening where promotional and advertising would happen? Most likely, yes, it will come, certainly, but not that strong in predicting when, how, etc., and so forth. Yes, but today, in all honesty, James, we see very little from the international brands going into Africa. Locally, there's things happening, yes, but internationally, it's very limited because of regulations in place.
Yeah, because typically how it goes is that the big brands, the Disneys of the world, the McDonald's, who really have latched on in certain countries, I know those two brands in particular, into mobile messaging for advertising purposes, where they lead, others tend to follow. But there's a certain lag in time, and of course, not every country around the world is the same. Larissa, going forward across Russia and the countries you mainly serve, what do you think will continue to drive those increases in SMS traffic? Will it be more existing customers increasing their volumes, or do you think they really will, as people are talking about a lot, so many new businesses on the back of what happened with COVID and digital transformation coming in? So it's the new businesses driving the increase, or will it just be more of the same from existing businesses? What's your feeling?
What we can see now is that, the growth we can see now is mostly because of our new customers from e-commerce, as I mentioned. And the existing customers try to optimize their cost actually, because messages are getting more and more expensive, at least in Russia and in CIS, especially international messages. And of course, it's not that efficient maybe to send promotional SMS messages now. Our customers are actually looking for alternatives of SMS messaging. They even are looking for alternatives for codes and passwords, for example, push messages. They're interested in this channel as well. So it's hard to say. I actually don't expect growth from the existing customers, to be honest, at least in this region. But we do expect growth from other customers, or new customers also.
Okay, thank you. Taha, the same question to you. Your client base, or put this way, your growth across the countries you operate in, where's it going to come from?
Yeah, I think there's still a lot of digital transformation yet to happen in our markets for obvious reasons in terms of demographics and macro trends. We see growth coming in as more technical solutions are built. They'll need SMS, they'll need USSD, they'll need mobile payments, and all of these things will drive, messages as notifications as the complementary channels. So even if you do a mobile payment, there's going to be an SMS. Even if you do an USSD session, there's going to be a confirmation at the end as an SMS. So all of that will continue to drive growth. The other things we're really helping businesses and SMEs do is actually gather numbers. So most businesses in our markets, because they didn't use these channels traditionally or weren't digital in the first place, never collected phone numbers from customers. So that's something that we have to go back and keep helping these customers understand the importance of that and building up their database. And lastly, we're adding new value-added kind of use cases where to traditional kind of large enterprise that were already doing messaging and have kind of done all of it. We're trying to now combine data science into it and offer a data-driven marketing product. So it's very segmented and very highly result-oriented or outcome-driven. So we're driving growth on a couple of different fronts.
Malick, it doesn't take too many people to be too perceptive to work out that you kind of agreed with what Taha was saying. Give us your perspectives from your home country.
Yeah, well, basically, it's exactly what Taha said. The importance of these telephone numbers. Lately, we have been approached by some political parties, and they want to be using these platforms to sensitize and raise awareness through SMS. And it started a long time ago by us sensitizing them on taking these telephone numbers and segmenting these telephone numbers based on locations. And yeah, it's paying off now, and it's exactly like he said. That's why he got my thumbs up. Whatever you do, you're going to need an alert or a notification, being it USSD, whatever you do, being it a verification, that SMS is going to grow. There is no other channel that can grow the SMS, I believe.
No, I have to admit, well, people who know me and have known me for years have been a very, very big supporter of SMS. So, yeah, I have to agree with that personally, although I shouldn't. Again, I'm being a very, very bad moderator. But Eamonn, I know you would like SMS. You've worked with SMS for a long time, sir. From Infobip, what are you seeing? Do you see your major existing clients with a big uptick in traffic, or are you seeing a whole host of the small and medium-sized enterprises coming along? Because you've seen all the stats from analysts such as Mobile Squared saying that basically only 3% of registered companies out there use mobile messaging. So there's a whole world, millions, literally millions or tens of millions of companies out there yet to switch on to SMS or mobile messaging. What are you seeing? What do you think will happen with your client base?
I think, so James, I probably, to answer this question, I'd refer back to the sort of the title of this discussion, which is about scale and differentiation. I think when you look at scale at the very simplest level, you know, there are 5.3 billion unique mobile users on the planet, and that's growing every single day. And the one thing they've all got in common is the ability to receive an SMS. You know, we see in terms of our role in Infobip and wholesale, with our connectivity to over 600 operators worldwide, a big part of our role is to bring that scale to the market. So we provide that connectivity via the mobile operators to those 5.3 billion mobile phone users. And then our clients, our wholesale clients, as largely the guys responsible for the differentiation. So by their very nature, wholesale customers are entrepreneurial, they're innovative, they're quite dynamic, they're very fast moving. They tend to focus on maybe a vertical segment or a particular geographic region, and that enables them to have a unique understanding of the needs of the business customer. So we think there's going to be a lot of organic growth just from the existing players in the marketplace, but also we're kind of seeing some potential growth from new entrants like digital agencies or, you know, mobile payments companies and others who are integrating SMS into their core proposition. So it'll be interesting to watch over the next year or two to see how that evolves.
Fantastic. Now, the whole issue of commercial models was raised, and basically message pricing, commercial models, I'd rather call it. Dimitri, you're obviously working for a mobile operator group. Of course, everyone wants to monetize the great opportunity SMS provides, but how do you go about setting effectively a realistic price, something that maintains the growth? Because we heard Larissa in Russia there with the operators charging a very high price and people looking for alternative channels such as push. And I know Telegram is used by a good number of enterprises in Russia for messaging. And you want to keep that SMS channel being used. So what are you guys doing at MTN Global Connect to make sure that you're monetizing it fairly, but also not hurting the channel? How do you do that?
So I think we need to be a little bit creative here, right? And support the growth of that A2P business right now. If somewhere we start thinking, how do we promote and encourage companies to use SMS as a channel, I think we need to become creative in terms of showing more flexibility in terms of commercial models, right? Where we typically start thinking around, okay, let's look into the message. What are the type of messages that are being sent? Start to classify them, and then at the end of the day, try to understand how I'm going to charge a transactional authentication type of message compared to more an informative type of message, right? And if you then start being creative and implement those different commercial models, pricing schemes, which of course requires again a huge effort from the entire orchestration into your platform, your infrastructure to be able to support this. But that's the right way, and that is, in my view, the right direction to go to actually start making the differentiation in different type of messages. And then I think we're set for the next step where enterprises will understand that it's not just one price and it's expensive, right? But we're going to start tailoring and offering support to those enterprises to help them to grow their business as well.
Fantastic. Yeah. So differentiation is more than just a domestic or international SMS, whatever that definition for international is. That's a whole different question. And indeed, we have a whole working group or sub-working group looking at the whole area of international commercial models in SMS. But believe it or not, our time is going to be up in 5 minutes. We're going to be finished. So just closing remarks from each of you. I'm just going to go top corner in my view. Malick, start off with you. The future of wholesale SMS, all things being equal, is it bright? Do you think it's going to continue growing for the next few years? But what are the dangers also that people start to realize, hang on, we can make some money here? What needs to be done?
Well, I think in this part of the world, I'm sure Taha will support me. The policies needs to be in place to regulate the MNOs basically on the pricing, both national and international. What do we call a national or an international SMS? And if that's regulated, I think the sky is the limit. There is no stopping for SMS, like I said, and it's just going to grow because people are going to do transactions daily, and these transactions needs to be notified, and yeah, it's just going to grow. Okay.
Fantastic. Now, Taha, closing remarks. Now, Malick talks about the regulatory side of things. Are you, from your perspective, would you want the regulator to get more involved or not? Because I hear different things from different people.
No, I think, there's enough regulation as it is in the space, in terms of licensing and so on and so forth. I think probably DND or things like that haven't been used enough in many markets. There's only a few markets in Africa that actually have very well thought out DND lists to protect consumers. But mobile operators also, in Africa particularly, a lot of them are implementing firewalls across the board, and yes, to protect consumers and monetize the channel more, but it's also hurting businesses who maybe are regional. You know, let's say they're not local businesses but are trying to move into a neighboring market. But then there's a one-size-fits-all approach to saying everything else is international, whereas that pricing is basically meant for Facebook and Google and whoever, and not for, you know, let's say an African business that is trying to do business across borders. So there's definitely some challenges in that, and you know, the operators keep changing regulations too often, then businesses will just shy away from the medium.
I keep using that C word, consistency. We need consistency. Larissa, over to you. Final closing remarks. The future of wholesale SMS. What do you think?
It really depends on the region and as well also on industry. So that's it.
Very simple. I like it. Short and straight to the point. It depends, but providing people get those things right and don't play too much, I think the future looks bright. Larissa?
Yeah, sorry. In general, yes. So we see some potential here, of course, but again, it really depends. So we need to.
So there's some risks, different risks
right.
we've been hearing. And Eamonn, yourself, to close this off, what would you say?
Yeah. So I think it is bright. I think there are enough people in the industry who have an interest in continuing to drive the growth of the industry, continuing to be innovative, look for new use cases, look for new opportunities, sell to new businesses, and at the same time, a word of caution: we all need to be careful to make sure that we don't get greedy in terms of pricing, and that you know, by overpricing the product, we might kill the goose that lays the golden egg. But so we just got to keep an eye on that and make sure we're sensible about it, and everybody in the value chain will benefit as a result.
Fantastic. So there you have it, everyone. SMS. It's not dead. Those of you who met me 4 or 5 years ago were saying, hey, SMS, it's on its way out, James. Why are you still talking about it? It's here, and it's here to stay, and it's growing. So I'd like to say thank you very, very much indeed to all my participants, my speakers here. Malick, great seeing you. Thank you very much indeed. Taha from Tanzania. Dimitri from the UAE, thank you very much for joining. Eamonn from Infobip in Dublin, and Larissa in Kazan in Russia. Thank you so much. And to you, the viewers, appreciate you joining us for this show. Thank you very much and goodbye.
Bye-bye.
Thanks, James. Bye-bye.